Okay, everyone, so we should be live. So welcome to another Wellness Wednesday workshop. It's been a little bit since we've all been able to come together, so we're super excited to be able to bring this back to y'all. Tonight, we have Regina Carmine with the Financial Empowerment Center, and we're going to be talking about saving for the holidays. So my name is Kiyomi, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager at Center of Life. We also have Devon here in the background. And so we're just going to give this space to Regina to talk about saving for the holidays, which I'm sure all of us could learn a little bit more about. And if anybody joins us or has any questions online, please feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat, and I'll make sure to get them to Regina.
Thank you, Kiyomi. I'm assuming, Kiyomi, you're going to let me share my screen whenever the time is right. But while we are waiting, my name is Regina Carmine. I have been a financial counselor, a credit counselor. I am also a HUD certified housing counselor. I've been there for about 15 years, but I've been with the Pittsburgh Financial Empowerment Center for just about 10 months. I'm one of the newer counselors. There are 5 of us all together, and we cover a myriad of subjects, and there are very few financial subjects that we don't like to discuss. And as a matter of fact, tonight's subject is actually going to be rather entertaining, I think. And the subject tonight is financial management with an emphasis on saving for the holidays. Can you let me know if you can see the screen all right, Kiyomi?
Yep, I can see it. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. So just a real quick little intro to the Pittsburgh Financial Empowerment Center. And I could go on and on about what we are, but what we are is a free service. There are 5 financial counselors on staff, and we are a junction of the city of Pittsburgh in combination with Neighborhood Allies, Advantage Credit Counseling. And we originally started by a grant from the Cities for Financial Empowerment, which was started in New York back in 2008. This particular presentation is one of the many that we do. And although the subject matter, again, is about saving for the holidays, we need to talk about the big picture and then kind of creep in on the holidays. Basically, it's about managing your finances. Managing money is a funny thing because it's not something that's taught in the public schools. And even if you had great parents, it's pretty unlikely they talk to you about money. So a lot of us, once we get old enough and get our first job, we're a little overwhelmed with what we do with our money and how we manage it. The foundation of managing your money with the goal of having that money work for you to get to your financial goals is tracking your expenses. After you track those expenses and know what it is that you have going on a regular basis, the next step would be to build a budget so that you have something, you build little walls, parameters, so that you don't overspend. And then after that, the key component of working towards holidays, and remember, there are a number of holidays throughout the course of the year, it is to save. It's never too late to start saving for the holidays. But these are the little components I want to look at in order to talk about approaching the holidays in a manageable fashion. So as I mentioned, money management means different things to different people, but to almost everyone that we work with the Financial Empowerment Center, there's a little bit of timidity involved in it, a little bit of embarrassment, and a lot of people that we work with initially come to us and quite honestly confess that they're not good at managing their finances, and they need help in building a budget. I do want to stop for a second and mention, any of you who are watching this live, by all means, if you can send questions my way, and I'll leave the information at the end of our presentation as well, so that you can follow up with any questions for myself or any of the counselors at the Financial Empowerment Center. As I mentioned just a little bit ago, the foundation of managing your money is tracking your expenses. This is something that can take a lot of different forms, and it's all up to the individual. But the basics of that is writing down all of your expenses, particularly, and your income as they happen. I'm one of those old school counselors, and I believe that everyone should know how much it takes for them to survive in a typical month. Just like when you walk into a shoe store, you know your shoe size. And I think that everybody, when they get their paycheck, should have a rough idea of, this is how much I need to get by. There are a lot of variables, of course, But keeping track of your expenses, writing them down is really the only way to find out where all your money is going, actually. There are a lot of places where, according to the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, one of my trainings years ago, referred to them as spending leaks. We all know how much we pay for rent and put gas in the car, but there are a lot of little places where $1 or $2 sneaks out and you really don't keep track of it. So when you start tracking your expenses, and there are a lot of different tools to do this, when you start doing it, you can't skip anything, even a 69-cent Snickers bar. You can't skip over it, you can't cheat, and you can't round up either. This is not something that you turn in to be graded. You're doing this for yourself, so that ideally, at the end of the day, you can take a look at everything that you spent on that day, whether it was a trip to the grocery store, running into the dollar store, getting gas in the car, or maybe you were lucky and you stayed home and you just bought stuff online. Write those numbers down and add them up. This is the only way to find out where your money is going, where it's leaking out, and how you can start managing it and saving it. As I mentioned just a little bit ago, there are all sorts of different ways to keep track of your spending. Old school methods are, in my opinion, the most effective. You can use a planner. You can use a spending journal. I've got a daily spending record that I have given to probably thousands of clients. And if anyone's curious, I could show it to you at the end of this session. But it is really a piece of paper with a long column with different categories: gas, fast food, eating out, Amazon, that sort of stuff, so that at the end of the day, and you have to make a habit of it, you write down what you spent that day and add it up. The particular tracker that I have also has a category where you could add up going crossways, and that way you'll know down to the penny, this is how much I spent on groceries this month. This is how much gas I put into the car. It's a really wonderful tool. That particular tool, those planners or spending trackers or journals, they start with the basic step of collecting receipts. And a lot of people don't collect them receipts anymore. I know when I got gas in my car this morning, there were receipts blowing across the gas station parking lot. But it starts with collecting receipts, putting them in a common place every day, back pocket, something like that, so that at the end of the day, you write those numbers down on your tracker and you're good to go. Making it a habit is incredibly important, but habits aren't hard things to make. And I always encourage folks to make it a habit while they're doing another habit, which is brushing your teeth at the end of the night. Most of us brush our teeth at the end of the day. And truly, while you're brushing your teeth, you can write down those numbers from those receipts and throw those receipts away when you're finished. When I hear folks tell me that they've got shoe boxes full of receipts, they're not doing much good for you. So collect those 5 receipts every day, write those numbers down, throw those receipts out. But do it habitually. Do it every day at the same time while you're doing something else. That way you don't feel like it's hard work. If you don't feel like going old school, there are other solutions that a lot of people like, and there are a lot of tracking apps out there. Most of these apps are free and very easy to use. And if you use a debit card or your credit card, once you download the app, you connect it, you link it to that account so that when you get gas at the gas station and you swipe your card, it pings on your app. It wrote it down for you. You don't need the receipt after all. Same thing with your credit card. The only little trick with using a tracking app is that it does not count cash. There's no way it can find out that you spent $2.32 out of your change drawer on something. So you do have to write that in manually. Some of the more common apps that we refer, but there are a lot of them out there. Mint has a good app. Pocket Guard does as well. A lot of local banks have their own apps as well. But what you want to do is you want to get one that keeps track of what you are spending, not just your balances. And just like the old school app of making a habit, the old school planner, of making a habit of it, make a habit of looking at your app. You're brushing your teeth, pull up your phone and see what you spent that day. A lot of these apps can even make categories for you so that you can see what you spent that day. And at the end of the week, you can see how much you spent on groceries, on gas, on cat litter. Okay. So old school apps, old school planners, spending journals, apps. And then for people who really enjoy this kind of stuff, and it does get kind of fun, it almost becomes a challenge sometimes. You can get a calendar, map out your money as it's coming in and going out. I know a lot of folks who have just a regular old calendar, like they give away at the end of the year. And if they're paid every other week, they write that pay down every other Friday. If their rent's due the 5th, they subtract it, and so on. And that way you can watch your money on a daily basis. But I'm a bigger fan of the up close and personal tracking, the old school trackers or the apps that I referred to too. Now, this is why tracking is important, and I'm not getting off subject, because as you're tracking, you are going to be making categories in your mind of things that are needs and wants. And this is where we really need to get a good breakdown to decide what things we can do without, pinch pennies on, and have flexibility involved. The little chart that you see here, I suspect is easy to tell. A weekly manicure is not a necessity. Even though you love it, it's not necessarily a necessity. Now, groceries are a need, but I will say there's flexibility built into that grocery chart. You can shop at a less expensive store, use the food pantry, but it is a necessity to daily life. A bus pass, likewise, it is a necessity. If you can't get to your job or school without that bus pass, it's a necessity. Dinner out, although it's a wonderful thing, there's flexibility involved, but it is a want. Phone's a necessity. Netflix, not so much. Now, a lot of these are in the eye of the beholder. And as counselors at the Pittsburgh Financial Empowerment Center, we don't tell people what their own priorities are or what's important to them. Because sometimes the things that are important to some people are not as important to others. And a lot of things we do for our own mental health as well. But as far as the things that keep you happy, healthy, and able to move forward with your financial goals, those were definitely the need, like clothing as compared to a night out at the movie. Once you kind of have these divvied up into needs and wants, you get those columns. And yours may or may not be the same as this. Again, your rent and your mortgage. I always say keeping that roof over your head and your toes warm and the water running. That's the need. That's the priority. We also have groceries, transportation, paying for insurance. Wants are some of the other things that we had seen on the previous list. But this is a really nifty little guide. Okay. And this is where we're going to start sliding into talking about saving for the holidays. Half of what you bring in a typical month should go towards your needs. Now, it doesn't have to be 50% of it. If you can get away with it just being 30%, that's great, really. But it should be no more than half. And this is the income after your taxes are taken out. So in your mind, once you do your tracking and you find out this is where my money is going, you compare it to this is what's coming in. And half of what's going out can go through for your rent, your mortgage, your electric and your gas, water, sewage, groceries, transportation. Now your wants are 30%, all right? And these are the fun things: eating out, traveling, movie tickets, that kind of stuff. So even if you're not a big fan of percentages, think about $100. $50 would be the need, $30 would be the want. Now the other 20%, $20 out of every 100, you should actually be able to set aside to your financial goals. It says savings and paying down debt, but let's just put that emphasis on saving, putting that aside. I could go on and on about that putting it aside part, but I won't do that because that could be hopefully not under your mattress, but that's better than nowhere else, but a local bank, an online bank, investments, things along those lines. But if you can save 20% out of every paycheck, out of every monthly income, and put that into savings, you're one step ahead because you're going to want that savings for all sorts of things. Just a little side tip about that 50% that we're looking there. Ideally, you want to keep your housing costs under 25 to 30% of your income. And of course, if you all can think about it, think about what you're paying for rent. And the utilities are the ones If your utilities are included in your rent, you're a very lucky person. But if you add those up and just do the simple calculations, you don't want to be spending too much just for your rent. And I know there's much of that we don't control. But again, the one thing I want to emphasize, the 50, 30, 20, 50% for the needs, 30% for the wants, and then hold on to 20% for your savings. All righty. So in tracking your expenses and following this 50, 30, 20 rule, you're making your budget. All righty. And you're going to be able to say, well, I can do that this month because I have it in my budget. It's in my 30%. I can go to the beach for a weekend. However, if you have that 50%, which is the priority that you take out, and that 30 and 20 have some degree of flexibility. If you want to save aggressively to pay down credit cards, set aside money for the holidays, that 30% can shrink a little bit. And maybe you'll tell your friends, I can't go out to eat this week because I'm saving for Christmas. But it's all part of the process of developing a budget. And once you develop a budget, which again is the second step, step one is track your expenses. Step two is develop that budget. And after you do that, you can know exactly where your money's going, how much that you have. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here because we can talk all day. Just like there are all sorts of different trackers, there are all sorts of different budgets that people like to use. The zero-based budget just means that what you have coming in and going out end up to zero every month. But that includes that 20% that you put into savings. The envelope method, a lot of people are familiar with, and that is after you track your expenses and know I spent $300 on groceries, you actually have an envelope with $300 in it. And anytime you go do your grocery shopping, you pull it out of that envelope, get your groceries, put the change back into that envelope. And that way you really stick on the budget, because if you want to go shopping at the end of the month and there's only a $10 bill in there, that's all you got for groceries. You know, paying yourself first, again, is where there's that emphasis on doing those things that you enjoy. And then 50, 30, 20 budget, I've already mentioned on a number of occasions. So now let's talk about savings. This is that 20%, and this is where the holidays come in. Ideally, and I'm not going to wag my finger because we all have moments where emergencies come up and life takes over. Ideally, you want to be saving ongoing every month. That way you are really prepared, not only for holidays, but for things like emergencies. All righty. Emergencies are things like the transmission went out, or bigger ones like I got laid off. If you have something in savings and an emergency comes up, basically you don't have to go to the bank to borrow money to fix your transition, because you are the bank and you just borrow that money from yourself and you don't charge yourself any interest. An emergency fund is an incredibly important thing to have. You should start small. And almost every day I meet with clients who can't wait to save, and they say, well, I'm going to put aside $200 out of every paycheck into savings. And I always suggest start smaller. Start with $50 a pay, maybe $20 a pay even, until you get used to it, and make sure that you don't have overdraft fees. You're not bouncing checks, because if you start putting too much into your savings account early on, and then you find that you're not making do with that 50%, it's not working, it's hard to back down, and then it's easier to feel like you're failing. So start small, $10 a pay, $5 a pay. It all adds up eventually. Ideally, you want to build up to 3 to 6 months of expenses. Now that probably sounds like a lot. And I would like to use COVID as an example, but COVID's a little unusual example, because although a lot of us lost work during COVID, luckily we had the stimulus payments and things along those lines. In a normal situation, that doesn't happen. If you get laid off, you have, not that long ago, the statistics that I read, on average between 6 and 9 months until you find a job of equal pay. You need to make sure you have something set aside to pay the rent, because your landlord expects it. You have the signed lease. Pay the mortgage, because you've got a document that says if you miss too many mortgage payments, they get the house back, just like the car. So having an emergency fund, starting small and building it up, and even if you only have $20 in it for 2 months' time, it's something. as a place to start. And having that there is really what I think is the linchpin to changing your overall financial future, because I'm sure that many of you are aware of some of the studies that even most recently said that the average American couldn't handle an unexpected $400 expense. You can imagine how much better you'll sleep at night if something should happen, if you have to call off work, if a tire blows out, to have that emergency fund. There are different ways to work on that emergency fund too. Obviously, tracking, working in your budget, putting it aside, but not only do you want to take it out of the top of your paycheck or your benefits to put it aside, you can also work a little aggressively to add to your savings by substituting, which is a good example would be using generic ingredients and grocery items rather than name brand ones. Conserving things like conserving fuel instead of running into town twice a day, add everything up and go in twice a week if you can. Cooperate, which would be carpooling and using community resources. A good example of this is libraries. Libraries are wonderful things. I used to spend lots of money in bookstores, and it's been years, but I'd rather go to the library. For a lot of these things, if you can delay gratification, short-term sacrifice, sorry, can't go out tonight, it actually can lead to a long-term gain, right? And then you can also start strategizing, because once you get this emergency fund built, even when you're starting on the ground floor, think about what that savings is for. Is this savings so that I don't break the bank at Christmas? Is this savings for a down payment? Is this savings so that I can take the kids to the Bahamas in the spring? Something like that. So once you start that savings, kind of give it a name for yourself. And infrequent expenses would be things, you know, again, like that trip to the Bahamas. If you know it's going to cost you $1,200 to fly there and stay in a hotel, you set that cost and you start saving towards that goal. Holidays are a great example of this. If you do a gift exchange with 5 of your best friends and $100 is the limit, you want to have a $500 goal in your savings account so that you can tap into it when the time comes. That's probably the best example for people who give the same gifts to certain family members. It's always nice when they're thoughtful and give you a maximum amount to spend. But those are the kind of infrequent expenses that savings accounts are ideal for. You save them and you borrow against yourself, you use it and you get back to saving again. The variable expenses, you know, likewise are the things that can change unexpectedly, and the unexpected expenses, of course, are just beyond that. So saving over time, even little amounts for infrequent expenses, as well as bigger purchases. And the way that I had mentioned it earlier is the best way to look at it. You are borrowing against yourself so that if that transmission needs to be fixed, you can borrow it from yourself. And likewise, you don't want to do what an awful lot of folks do for the holidays, and that is end up digging themselves a hole and paying off those Christmas gifts in July. You don't want that for yourself, and the folks that you're giving those gifts don't want that either. So the issue about savings is about the habit. And I know that I've used that word habit several times, not necessarily the amount. Putting $20 per pay, $20 per week. If any of you are curious enough, you can look online, savings challenges. There are so many programs out there that give you ideas. One of the ones that I like a lot, I think it's called the 52-week savings challenge. And there are 52 weeks a year. And if you put $1 aside for the first week, 2 the second week, 3rd the 4th week, what that tends to do is by the end of that time, you have a beautiful amount of money in that savings account. And then it just revolves around again. It is never too late to start saving. And likewise, it's never too early to start saving as well. Now, as far as the holidays, a lot of people take different approaches to this. And this goes kind of in a counterclockwise fashion, right? So one thing you could do, and a lot of people are understanding in this climate, is bow out. You can say, you know what, maybe next year we'll exchange gifts. This year, let's just exchange hugs instead. We have the secret the secret snowman, some people call it the secret Santa, the exchanges like that usually have nice low limits, gifts of kindness and time. And if you have at the very bottom, a lot of folks are anxious and don't even want to start looking. On the right-hand side, you've got a slightly more organized approach. Have a list, have a budget. And if you have that budget in advance, if you know that you are buying your cousin something for no more than $20 and your two sisters the same thing, you know what your budget is. And that way, as you start saving and you save and wrap it around the calendar year, if you see something for your sister in that $20 budget in the spring, get it then and tuck it in the back of the closet until Christmas. Some people love, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, I've never understood the attraction of this, the Black Friday or the Cyber Monday deals and the chaos that ensues. For some people, it's a social get together. But if that is your thing, comparing online and watching and waiting for those deals and getting it then, as long as you have that savings set aside, you're good to go. And then your shopping is complete. I tend to take a slightly different approach to this, to be perfectly honest with you. And we are all different. I'm not a great fan of spending a lot of money for material goods. And this is an honest reminder, you do not need to spend money to show others that you care about them. You just don't need to do it. There's a question with a series of answers, and I think it's probably pretty obvious what the answer to this would be. So you're looking at your budget and you realize you don't have enough money to buy gifts for everyone on your list. So of the 4 options, one of them is not a good solution. You can give a picture of your family in an inexpensive frame, give something that's homemade, like a cake that you baked, offer to help with something like babysitting, or you can buy expensive gifts with your credit card. I suspect that most of you know that the expensive gifts with your credit card is not the good solution here. Not only are you going to end up paying interest, dropping your credit score, ending up paying this back for a series of months, but those first 3 options, the photograph, the homemade cake, babysitting or yard work, those are actually the things that are more impactful for people. Socially speaking, making somebody a Christmas ornament for their tree out of popsicle sticks and painting them and putting glitter on them, especially for those of us in the 5 and under crowd. And every year when you hang that on your tree, you think about that individual and that event far beyond the time that somebody gives you something that they ran that credit card up for. And this is just to dispel a very common fallacy that my fellow counselors and I hear on a daily basis. The only ones who benefit from keeping a balance on your credit cards are the lenders, the credit card companies. I don't want to slide into my lecture on credit and credit usage, but there are a lot of folks who have the incorrect perception that when you carry a balance on your credit cards, it is good for you, and it is not. The credit card companies want you to be able, they want you to have to carry that balance over month after month after month. The reason why, if you're not sure, is because they get to charge you interest, finance charges, sometimes late fees. Ideally, for the sake of your credit and for the sake of your gift giving and your financial health and stability, whenever you use your credit card, pay it off entirely at the end of the month. Some people, and I'm one of those, do this, and that is when I have my card in hand and I'm ready to buy something, I ask myself, will I be able to pay this off at the end of the month? And if the answer is no, I do not buy it. There are, of course, exceptions to the rule, such as my refrigerator broke. I need a new fridge. However, go back to that emergency saving that we have set aside. That's for tackling that. And then that way it doesn't interfere with the Christmas gifts that you're going to buy anybody. So if you do end up using your card, your credit card for holiday gifts, make sure that you're spending an amount that you will be able to pay off at the end of that month. But again, to go back to the previous assessment and the previous slide that I had mentioned, ideally, be a little creative. Give something of yourself, something inexpensive, something that you made, something that people can consume, a book, a hand-me-down, something along those lines. But credit card companies are the only ones who suggest keeping a balance. They're the only ones who benefit from it. Then the other thing too is, the true gift to your family is that you don't want to have the stress of having a high credit card balance carrying with you over the course of the following year just to make those Christmas gifts. So ideally, again, start saving early. It's not too late to start saving, but couple that with being creative in your gift giving, and not necessarily falling for all of the tempting offers that are flashing past us. And your best gift to your family will be not being in debt until the following summer. So we just covered this little intro to money management, talking about tracking expenses, having that savings, not only for emergencies, a savings for emergencies, a savings for holidays, a savings for travel. We always refer to them as savings buckets, and you can have as many savings buckets as you like, but to have that set aside for holidays is really something that makes the holidays a lot more enjoyable. Also mentioned about how to build a budget. Now, we have a number of other programs at the FEC that we can talk about, building credit and dealing with debt. But we're not going to go into that right now. What I do want to do, though, is stop right on this slide to let you all understand how to get in touch with the Pittsburgh Financial Empowerment Center. Our website's fecpgh.org. And on our website, you can read about what we do. You can read about our successes. We have a wonderful program that keeps track of the individual clients that we work with and how many, quite honestly, millions of dollars that they have paid off in debt, credit scores that have gone up. We don't identify individual people, of course, but our overall successes are there. You can also get to know each of the 5 counselors on staff. You could read our bios. And the best part of this website is you can actually schedule an appointment with us on this website. Again, by looking over the information on the counselors, you can actually follow the links, set yourself up for an appointment, schedule it yourself, because you will have access to taking a look at our calendars once we do it that way. So that being said, I know I kind of ran through that a little on the fast side. Kimmy, is there anything that I missed or should reemphasize, or any questions you might have in mind?
No, I think I do want to just personally emphasize our community members reaching out to y'all. I can, testify that I have used you all for my own financial counseling, because I think too, it can be hard to approach the subject, especially when you see the 50-30-20. I know for me personally, when I saw that, I was like, oh, my expenses are definitely over 50%. Like so I just don't even know how I can afford the 20%. So I think that can be really overwhelming and daunting. So I think if anyone at home also is having those same kind of feels that I am, just reaching out to the Financial Empowerment Center to be like, okay, how can I just get myself sort of financially together to even get to that part where I can do the 50-30-20? Because I know when I reached out, I was like, I cannot even begin to think about it in that way. And so they were able to help me think about building a budget and paying off my credit and tackling my school loans and different things like that. So I do just want to testify that it is very helpful to reach out to them. So we will make sure to drop the contact information in the chat so everyone can see that again back at home. And then too, I enjoyed that you went over the old school ways to kind of do that. I try to do that and then I lose the receipts and I'm just like, but I've seen the different apps too. And I don't remember if it's Mint, but there is an app that it's nice to use those because it will sometimes show you subscriptions that you forgot about. I don't know if anyone else is like that, but so you have to subscribe to Netflix and Hulu and all of these different things. And I'm definitely the type of person that be like, I'm just going to sign up for this 14-day trial and I'm going to cancel it. And I never cancel it. I always forget to do that. So sometimes those apps are really great about reminding you of those little subscriptions that add up that you just forgot even existed. So those are really helpful too. But we don't have any questions in the chat. And Regina, I just really thank you for your time and all of that information.
Sure.
Yeah. And again, I'll drop your contact information in the chat. And again, I really encourage people to reach out to y'all, but thank you so much for your time today and your expertise.
Thank you very much. It was great to chat. I could talk about money all day. So thank you. Thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.